Welcome to Vermont Artists and Authors, where we interview great storytellers and artists from the amazing Green Mountain State. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com. We're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and inspirational Vermont author, Robert Simpson.
Wow. Thank you.
How you doing?
Thank you. Good, thanks.
Good. So you just wrote your debut novel.
That's right.
It just came out. As of this recording, it came out a little under 2 months ago. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Small Town Prosecutor, Trials of Killers, Conmen, and a Priest.
Right.
That subtitle it will grab you right away. That's a really good subtitle.
I was hoping. Yeah.
Yeah. So I take it, is this a memoir or is this a fiction book or what is this?
Oh, it's not a fiction. It's definitely nonfiction, and I basically recount around almost 15 trials that I tried late 1980 and late 20th century, 1980s, 1990s, and then early 21st century up to 2006.
You know, as a prosecutor, what single trial in your career affected you the most, do you think, emotionally?
Okay, I think the one that affected me the most emotionally, actually, probably was the case where I tried a who had attacked his wife repeatedly over a 10-year period, and she had just kept coming back to him. She was a wonderful woman. She was a brave woman. But she just kept coming back to him, and eventually he killed her.
Oh, geez.
And that's the trial of Robert Jones, and that was in 2006.
And is that story also in your memoir as well?
Oh, yes, it's in the book. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm curious too, because in the subtitle as well, I mentioned a priest. Tell us about the trial of the priest and how did that case kind of shape your perspective on justice?
That one really cemented my belief in the jury system.
Okay.
I had what happened was this was in the late 1990s, and a 12-year-old girl was she and two younger girls, an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and those were sisters. And the 12-year-old girl was taking supposedly taking a Greek lesson with this Greek Orthodox priest named Emmanuel Koveos, Father Koveos. And he took her into his private room. They had been out in a conference room. He took her into his private office and sexually molested her, put his hand under her shirt, rubbed her vaginal area. And this was this priest was a friend of the child's parents. She was stunned. She broke down, and when her mom picked her up to take her home, told what had happened. The mom called the police. Police interviewed Father Koveos, and eventually he was charged with lewd and lascivious conduct. Basically sexually abusing a child. And there were three basic pieces of evidence. It was a short trial. The young girl testified as to what what happened to her. The priest said, "I didn't do it," and the police had gotten what they called a letter of apology from the priest, and he said that he wrote out, and it was supposed to go to the child. "I'm sorry for grabbing you in the crotch, touching you in the crotch area," or other details. But that was I'm really cutting it to the chase here. But that was it, and the trial only took 2 days, and.
Wow.
The child was, her parents were there, but most of the other people in the audience were supporters of the priest. And the case went in, she testified, he testified he didn't do it. the police officer or the detective who had gotten the so-called letter of apology, he testified, and there were 3 or 4 other people who testified. It was a 2-day trial, and the big fight. There were a number of difficult evidentiary issues, but the big fight was over the letter of apology. The priest testified that the police had taken advantage of him. English was not his first language. They had made him do 3 different drafts of the letter of apology, and they had told him that the crotch area was anywhere around your knees. Mm. So the evidence goes in. The judge said, "I'm going to let you," meaning me, "put in the letter of apology, but the jury is going to have the last word on it. They'll decide whether he was tricked or not, whether it was voluntary or he was tricked into doing it." So it took us, as I said, 2 days to try the case. It took the jury longer to decide the case. They listened to hours of the recordings of the priest's testimony, the detective's testimony, and the little girl's testimony. And when they finally, they put in almost 18 hours of deliberation. And when they came back, they found the priest guilty, but they found that the police had tricked him. So the statement was involuntary. The factual effect of that was the jury said, "We did not even listen or even consider the letter of apology. We listened to what the priest said and what the little girl said, and we believed the little girl." But they had done to put that much time in and to really follow the judge's instructions so carefully. I found it really gave me a faith in the jury system. It wasn't like I didn't have faith before, but that was an excellent example of how seriously juries take these cases. The priest was, of course, he appealed. But the judge said, and this was fairly rare, the judge said to him at the sentencing, "I'm sorry, you didn't come through and tell the truth. I definitely believe you're guilty, and I'm sentencing you to 6 months to, I think it was 5 years in jail, and you're going to go right away." Normally, you'd allow for an appeal, but the judge, the priest's lawyer, who was quite good, objected, tried to get it stayed until they could appeal, but the judge said no. The priest hired a new lawyer who was a brother of Dershowitz. You've heard of the defense attorney Dershowitz? Yeah, his brother, and he appealed it to the Vermont Supreme Court, and the Vermont Supreme Court had no difficulty upholding the conviction. So the thing that what I got most out of that was, 1, the courage of the little girl, and 2, how seriously the jury took the case and their job.
I mean, as a small town prosecutor, how do you weigh community interaction with, doing your job? Because you coexist with the community, and you're also there to prosecute, community members in a way.
I tried to be in the community. I volunteered for boards. My wife and I worked in the Little League, so we tried to be part of the community, but we definitely did not. I did not try to ask people what they thought of me and what they thought of the case or things like that. So
but because Vermont is such a small state, as a prosecutor, are you assigned to do prosecuting roles in your home area in your home county, or do you work in other counties?
Okay, well, I had two different jobs. I worked as an assistant attorney general in the 1980s, in the 1980s.
Hmm.
And then I worked as at the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office, which is, you probably know, it's by far the largest, most populous county in the state. It's more than a quarter of the people in the state. And I worked in there from 1994 to 2006. So I'm getting to your question, honest. When I worked for the Attorney General's office, I was assigned to go throughout the state. So I tried cases in Brattleboro and Windham County. I tried cases in Rutland. I tried cases in St. Albans, Washington County, and Barry. But when I went to the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office, and I was elected state's attorneys in 2001, I only did cases. Actually, I was asked once or twice to do a case where the state's attorney in St. Albans had a conflict. I'd go up there and I went up there and tried a case. There was the sheriff's son was charged with assault, and I went up there and tried that case. And then I tried one down in Addison County in Middlebury, where the prosecutor there had a conflict. I can't recall what it was, but that
Right.
is that answering your questions?
No, that's good. I want to talk a little bit about you, Bob, as an author now. So after you retired, what was that moment when you realized, like I need to write a book?
Well, what happened was I started my own practice after I retired as a Chittenden County State's Attorney, and that was in 2006, 2007. And I also taught. I'm getting there, honest. And I also taught online at Champlain College in their digital forensic science master's program. So I was doing that, and then in 2022, I retired from both. And I was still interested in doing some work and working on something. And that time was a time when we're talking about defund the police.
Mm.
The law enforcement as a whole was not held in very high regard in Vermont and in many other places in the country. They had criminal justice reform. And bottom line, I started to get a little angry. The Burlington City Council defunded. They tried to defund a quarter of the police department. It went from 100, and I think they were going to try to do 75. This is around the time George Floyd was murdered. Mm. And then they eventually, the officers left in droves, and they lost a third of the police department. And so this area is not as safe as it was any of the time I've lived here, which is 40 years. So that was one thing that's kind of made me mad. And then Vermont, as normally considered, it is a safe state, but violent crime in Vermont rose throughout the first 2 decades of the 21st century. They went from having 114 violent crime incidents per 100,000. That's murder, sexual assault, armed robbery, aggravated assault, 114 to 202 per 100,000 by the end of the decade. That was a big rise, particularly when the neighboring states were all going down. Mm. Violent crime in New Hampshire went down. It went from 175 incidents per 100,000 down to close to 100. And I thought, I was proud of the work that I had done, and I thought I'd made the community a little safer from the work I'd done. And I was working, of course, with police and other prosecutors. But so, and the most important work, or the most satisfying work I did was, I'm getting the honest, with juries and jury trials. So I And I thought it was topical at the time because at that time it was, 2023, 2024, Trump was going to be tried before juries. And I thought there might be some interest from that. And then it's even more topical now because he's got corrupt prosecutors. I know it's my opinion. He's got corrupt prosecutors who are effective, as far as I can see, trying to make up criminal cases against his enemies. And jury's going to stop that.
Right.
There's no appeal from a not guilty verdict in a jury. You go to some judge you've appointed and say, I don't like this. That's the end of the line. And I don't see how, from what I've read, they're going to be able to convince 12 people in the community that they have the evidence to convict these people he's got a vendetta against. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
So how did your background of legal writing prepare you to be an author of a memoir?
I look at legal writing as like an outline with verbs, and it's not. It probably doesn't flow. I remember I listened to the podcast that you had with Judge Pinellas on it, and he said it's not beach reading, and I remember that kind of stuck with me. Well, I tried to do, and I got help from editors at Onion River Press, was make short, concise paragraphs which explained, I hope, clearly what had happened. And so basically I cut a lot out of what I would do, the legal writing, and tried to make it clearer and easier to read.
How did you approach balancing fact, memory, and also keep a narrative momentum going?
I did not do anything other than try to get the facts out.
Right.
So I checked old newspaper. I have 350 endnotes. I went to the cases, the decisions where they affirmed the jury's verdict. The Supreme Court had done it. I read the facts as they put them in. I had my own notes. I went to those, and I went to newspaper articles because in those days there were a lot more coverage of trials in newspapers than there are now, as far as I can see.
How therapeutic was it for you to kind of relive some of these cases?
I felt good about talking about the work I had done and the work that the police officers and other prosecutors had done, because I was proud of it. So it made me feel good to say, this is what we did and this is what we accomplished. So in that sense, I never think in terms of therapeutic, but it made me feel good. So that should work.
And were there any stories that you kind of hesitated to include? And did you decide to, and how did you decide what stayed in?
Okay, well, what I did was the first part of it, when I worked for the Attorney General's office, I was asked to participate in several murder trials, and I thought those would be interesting for readers. And in one case, I worked in a case with detectives at a very famous case in Essex, where two young boys, 15 and 16-year-old boys, raped and murdered a girl as she walked to school. That I felt it was an awful story. Some of them were awful. I put a warning at the beginning of the book about some of the gruesome, but that changed the law in Vermont, that particular case. Now prosecutors can charge someone who was, I've never seen it happen, but from the age of 10 up for murder, aggravated sexual assault, crimes like that. And I noticed we have right here in Burlington, they just arrested 3 juveniles for a beating in City Hall Park when a man died. So I'll be interested to see whether they try them as adults or juvenile. So that's that case. I've had during that period, I was doing murder cases or going to other jurisdictions to pick up and take the pressure off prosecutors in Windham County, for instance, or in St. Albans in Franklin County. And then now when I got back to Chittenden County, I became particularly interested in domestic violence cases. And we also had a heroin problem. So I tried a case where a woman injected a guy who'd just gotten out of jail with heroin. She injected herself, and then he went down, and she dragged him into the shower and left him there, and he died. So that was an involuntary manslaughter. And then, of course, I did the priest case, which I believe was the first criminal jury trial conviction of a priest in the state, and I thought that would be of interest. There was a very gruesome case where a Vietnamese refugee attacked two other refugees with a meat cleaver. Mm-hmm. That was you had to use we had people who were interpreters who were quite good, but it was kind of a cumbersome case to get through. And the thing that was interesting, but the jury didn't know it, was this man had killed somebody else in Jackson, Mississippi, 8 years earlier. So I thought that was an important case. And then I got into domestic violence cases. And I told you about the Jones case, but I tried several domestic violence cases. Before, when I was working in the 1980s, when I was in Chittenden County, that was 2000, late 1990s. In the 1980s, the police departments throughout the country did not even rarely charge domestic violence cases because the victim, at least half the time, and maybe more, would call a police complaint and then say, I lied, or the police were lying, that she recanted. They were terrified of these people. It is a horrible problem. And the police at that time said, okay, that's a family matter. You work it out. And then in the 1990s, that shifted. There was a lawsuit in Connecticut where police basically stood by and watched this guy beat his wife severely. And there was a jury verdict, and there was a surge throughout the country to begin to really prosecute these cases. So that's what I was interested in that. I thought it was important, so I did those, a lot of them.
If your younger self read Small Town Prosecutor, what do you think he'd say?
This is pretty gruesome stuff. I'm not sure. I want to read it. I'm interested in it, but you have to really be interested in history and the way the law is involved in order to stay with it.
Did you set any personal rules for writing, like a daily word count or specific writing hours to push through the book?
No, I didn't. I just I had a lot of time since I've retired, so I did it as long as I felt like it, and then I'd listen to music. Of course, I'm here with my wife. We'd watch TV, eat, talk together.
And did you find it harder to write about the wins or the losses?
I found it. I never. I guess I'd have to be honest. I said the first murder trial I tried, I lost, and that was hard to write. And it was particularly because it brought back memories of me having to tell the victim's mother that it was not guilty. And that's, in that sense, it was difficult to write.
Yeah. Was there any more stories that you're kind of holding on to for a potential second volume? Because I'm sure there was plenty of cases that you never had the space to put in.
Yeah, there are others that I may. There was a case where a man who was also a Vietnam veteran like I was. He had taken up with another woman. I had a wife and 2 children. They were never seen again. He left, went down to Georgia, as I recall, and we got an arrest warrant for him, thanks to the hard work of state police in Franklin County. And we got an arrest warrant. They tried to serve the arrest warrant. He disappeared. And years later, well, not that much longer later, it had been a lot of time had passed until we got the arrest warrant. And we got the arrest warrant. The records, and I forget, it was somewhere in the Southwest, they found that he had killed himself. So that might be something that would be interesting to try to reconstruct. And I'm also interested in AI and facial recognition technology and how that's going to work and how that's going to evolve. It was quite controversial when it first came out, and now they're developing rules to use so police officers can show the computer a photograph, and they have a bank of photographs and pick out the name. I'm sure you probably know that. That's evolving, just as the prosecution of domestic violence is evolving.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, what's your what's next for you then, Bob?
Well, I probably I'll do a lot more. I'm 80, so I'll be doing a lot more reading and listening to music. But I may do that. I may also, if there are trials that come up here in Burlington or nearby, I may try to go there as a reporter and write them up and try to see if somebody's interested in publishing those. But that's about it. Okay. I'm not thinking. I'm not going to write anything as long as this again.
Okay. It's big. It's like over 250 pages, it looks like.
It's about 250 pages. 20 of those are endnotes. So right. Still a lot. And I cut it quite a lot with the advice and help of the people who were editors at Onion River Press.
Right. Yeah, and so as you say, this book was published locally by Onion River Press, which is one of the publishing houses that's here in Vermont. And so, Bob, if somebody wants to pick up the book, where's the best place they could go to pick up the book?
Well, they could go to Phoenix Books in Burlington. They can go online. There's a Kindle edition. Just about anywhere. It's in most bookstores. As far as I know, there are a number of bookstores, particularly in the northern part of Vermont and actually in the Barre area, because a couple of the murders were down there, a long time ago. So there's interest, I hope, there.
And also too, listeners and viewers of this podcast can also go to your local library and request their local library to pick up the book as well.
Sure, and I have actually delivered some to libraries to see if I could get some interest going. And I know, for instance, and Barre, the Barre Library has it.
All right, Bob, this was a genuine pleasure chatting with you.
Oh, I'm glad. It was fun for me as well.
Yeah. Excellent. And listen, when you write your second book and even your third book, make sure you come back on. We'll talk about it.
You bet. You bet.
Thank you.